gentlemen, the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, and Worldwide Sports presents America's #1 spectator sport, professional big-time wrestling.
And welcome back to the NWA 1983 project. I'm your host, Juan Cena, and with me, as always, is Matt Riley. How you doing tonight, Matt?
Oh, I'm doing fine now.
Yes. So on tonight's episode, we're going to take a look at the Detroit territory, the Sheik's territory. But first, we're recently coming off of Summerslam, so we're going to do a Summerslam recap, so to speak.
Damn right.
So did you watch the whole show, Matt, or did you just watch pieces of it?
Pieces of it.
Okay. I watched it twice. Just,
wow.
Yeah, just cause. So in terms of SummerSlam, we had, in our pre-show match, one of 3 pre-show matches, we had The Miz and the Miztourage of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. With Maurice, they defeated the Hardy Boys and Jason Jordan. We had Neville defeat Kira Tozawa for the Cruiserweight Championship. We had the Usos defeated the New Day for the WWE SmackDown tag. And then in our opening match, we had John Cena defeated Baron Corbin, Natalya, who defeated Naomi to win the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. Big Cass defeated Big Show. Randy Orton defeated Rusev. Sasha Banks defeated Alexa Bliss to win the WWE Raw Women's Championship. Finn Balor defeated Bray Wyatt. Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins defeated Cesaro and Sheamus. AJ Styles defeated Kevin Owens. Jinder Mahal defeated Nakamura. And Brock Lesnar defeated Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, and Braun Strowman. So I think overall this show was average. I know a lot of people online is like, this is the worst show I've ever seen in my entire life ever. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, let's be serious. And the show was average. I mean, it wasn't anything that's spectacular by no stretch of the imagination. The show was definitely lacking in terms of, kind of big moments and just overall just good match quality. But the matches were all right. There weren't anything spectacular. Now, in terms of our opening match, which was John Cena and Baron Corbin, I don't remember the last time John Cena did an opening match. He must have had something better to do later on in the evening. I know a lot of people online talk about, oh, so-and-so was buried and blah, blah, blah. Historically, that's not been the case. I mean, if you're in the main event and you eat 3 finishers and kick out and then you get beat, you're not being buried. Although this wasn't the case here because John Cena definitely buried Baron Corbin. And not anything in terms of the match, it's just John Cena's attitude. He was smirking. He was kind of being a dick. You know what I mean? Not quite a heel, but he was just being douchey. And he had a smirk on his face, and he basically didn't take Baron Corbin as a serious threat whatsoever and beat him in 10 minutes. So, yes, in this instance, if you go back and watch that match, Baron Corbin was buried, and probably deservedly so, because not for nothing, he's not ready for prime time, and he's having a lot of issues backstage, and he's saying weird shit on fucking Twitter, and he needs to chillax, go back and get his fundamentals straightened out, maybe work on his physique a little bit, and work on his character. He definitely doesn't deserve to be anywhere near the fucking main event. Now, in terms of Natalya and Naomi, I'm surprised that Natalya won here, since Naomi has the glow on the Women's Championship. And I know Mattel has been making a toy of that. But Mattel was making a toy that I know the WWE was pissed off at Mattel because Mattel's not getting their stuff out on time. So, they're doing, like say they have a big debut or a big returning guy, they want to have an action figure to sell along with that and merchandise for that. Right. And Mattel's not hitting these deadlines like they're supposed to. So, the WWE is kind of really pissed off at Mattel. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they left them for another company, would it be Hasbro. I wouldn't be surprised if the WWE left them for Hasbro at this point, since they're not getting their stuff out on time. The match was decent. I mean, there was nothing, a fairly simple match. They got 11 minutes. Natalya wins via submission. So, Big Cass defeated the Big Show. And again, they had the shark cage, and the whole spot of the night was Enzo Amore getting out of the shark cage. He apparently put baby oil in his pants and lathered himself up, and then snuck out of the cage just to get booted in the face. So there you go.
Nice.
Unfortunately, the next night on Raw, we'll talk about the next night on Raw. Big Cass had an injury, and he's going to be out for a while, so there goes his push. Randy Orton defeated Rusev in a nothing match. It was 10 seconds, so there you go.
Right.
Apparently, it looks like if you read Twitter today, and today is August 26th, there have been rumors this week that both Rusev and Lana were asking for their release. And today, Rusev had a very cryptic tweet thanking the WWE front office for something. So don't be surprised if we see Rusev get released in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, they've got nothing for him.
They got nothing for him. Go over the Global Force, go to Japan. Go to Ring of Honor. There's other options for him at this point. And I think he deserves better. I mean, he could have been a legitimate top guy. And they just booked him like shit. What are you going to do? In another surprise victory, we had Sasha Banks defeated Alexa Bliss. And why this is surprising is that it was supposed to be Bayley versus Alexa Bliss. Unfortunately, Bayley got injured, so Sasha took the spot. Another title run for Sasha. We'll see what she can do with it at this point. Alexa Bliss is the star of the show. You know, there's two stars in the show. There's The Miz and there's Alexa Bliss. Those are the two stars that we have right now. Probably the two best heels in wrestling currently. So we'll see, what Alexa Bliss does moving forward. Finn Balor defeated Bray Wyatt. I mean, that was a pretty fun match. Again, nothing too over the top, nothing too crazy. It was what it was. We'll see. It's all about when you look at some of these matches. Again, some of these kind of more throwaway matches or cobbled together matches, or these cobbled together feuds that only take place over a 3 to 4 week period. We got to see where these guys go. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Finn moving forward. If he goes to move up the card or move down the card, or what they're going to do with Bray Wyatt moving forward. So
right,
that's the most interesting about most of these pay-per-views. The most interesting thing about these pay-per-views is what they're going to do next, not what they're doing now, which is weird because you literally have no interest in what they're doing now. You have interest in what they're going to do next because everything is kind of really just bland right now. And another surprise when we had Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins defeated Cesaro and Sheamus. I thought this match would go to like a double count out, or I thought Seth Rollins or Dean Ambrose were going to turn on each other. Not the case here. They basically just won the belts outright, and Cesaro likes to pop beach balls. So, if anyone saw, he ran into the fucking crowd, grabbed the fucking beach ball that was being passed around in the crowd, and fucking ripped it apart. And probably depending on how you feel on this, the match of the night, what I consider the match of the night, was AJ Styles, who defeated Kevin Owens. Again, they had a really solid match. Shane, as the special guest referee, was okay. I mean, he didn't. It's Shane being Shane, so
yeah.
AJ did the win here, and he retained the United States Championship, so good for AJ. I thought it was a really solid match. In a really shitty match, we had Jinder Mahal, who defeated Nakamura, and I stated on this program before that I wasn't sure Jinder had the skill set to not carry Nakamura through a good match, but to have a Nakamura-style match. It's just oil and water at this point. It was sloppy. Jinder really fucked up his finisher a little bit, just couldn't get it applied on him, and it wasn't a good match by any stretch of the imagination. You gotta, Nakamura has a specific style, so you need to be like a AJ Styles to really have a good match with him, or a Sami Zayn to have a good match with him, or a Samoa Joe to have a good match with him. Jinder is not at that level in terms of a worker. I'm not saying that he won't be at some point, but he's just not at that level as a worker at this point. And then we had Brock Lesnar, who defeated Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, and Braun Strowman. And I really like this match. It was a really good brawl. The interesting part about this match is that, Braun Strowman basically just picking up Brock Lesnar and just chucking him all over the place. Put him through 2 tables. And basically he fucking stretched out Brock Lesnar, which is a huge fucking deal. But the interesting part is, I'm not sure who the heels are, because, the spot where Brock got put out in the stretcher, he's out for a while and then comes back? That's totally a babyface spot. That showed that Brock has fucking heart. And it's weird to put him in that situation. Like if it was Roman Reigns, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that with him, because he's supposed to be a babyface, but he's not. But it showed that Brock had some heart, and he ended up getting the victory. The only thing I didn't like about this match, I don't think they gave... Samoa Joe didn't take enough. You know what I mean? He didn't do enough stuff in the match. He basically got beaten up and thrown out. It looked like they gassed out pretty early, which I'm not surprised for a bunch of big guys. I'm actually surprised about Joe, because he usually has good wind. But it was a lot of guys just laying on the floor for an extended period of time, which was boring, especially for a 20-minute match. It's and even when Brock Lesnar got carried out, they're all just laying on the floor getting hit by fucking stairs and not doing anything. Yeah, that entire time where Brock was getting carted out, they just sat there and didn't do anything. Whoever the agent in that match didn't do a good job putting at least that portion of that match together. Again, I think they're angling to a Brock Lesnar Braun Strowman feud for the future, maybe at Royal Rumble, maybe earlier. Who knows? It could be a WrestleMania main event if they take it that far.
Summerslam. Or no, Survivor Series.
It could be Survivor Series. Although I think they're going to try to steal a fucking gate there, but that's a whole other story. Yeah, so I think overall the pay-per-view was average. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I thought it was okay. I mean, I liked it. I think that
and all we're doing is nitpicking. I mean, it's a good show.
Well, yeah,
that's what I'm saying. We're just nitpicking.
I think one of the small areas I didn't like was having, I think her name now, Booty Girl, Natalia beat her. So she cries. It's like, don't cry. Like, I get it, but like, all the women start crying after their losses. I just think it's like, if it happens all the time, it loses its power. I was just saying that I think that with the women's title change, they keep having the champ that loses the belt cry. And I think if it ever happen all the time, it loses that power.
Yeah.
Where if it's once in a blue moon, you're like, oh, okay.
Well, I think they don't know. They have all these great women on the roster, and I don't think they know exactly what to do with them because they are breaking new ground. You know what I mean? They are in uncharted territory. I think what the women's division is missing now is violence. They're missing violence. They need violence.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think what they need is, like, that'll help. But, like, because Nia Jax kind of gives it that idea, but you need someone who's threatening for more than just their size. Like, a maniac. Like, remember Luna?
Yeah.
I always liked Daphne back in the day, and then TNA.
Even a Sherry Martel who used to take fucking bananas fucking bumps.
Yes.
She's like always getting fucking Hogan's always fucking giving her atomic drops and she's flying over the top rope. But yeah, definitely we need someone who's a little bit more threatening. Maybe wear some face paint or maybe has a mask or because they're all kind of similar. I mean, they're wrestlers, which is great, but you need to mix it up. And other than Nia Jax, at this point, there's no one else that's really really different. And to me, I would book Nia like she's a goddamn Road Warrior or Goldberg and have her fucking kill people.
Yeah.
And then you can always set up that Asuka, who is unfortunately got injured, but that Asuka Nia Jax match in the main event where they just brutalize each other I think is the right direction they should go in. But I just don't think they know exactly what to do, and they're trying to kind of figure it out at this point because they are breaking new ground. You're gonna have some growing pains there, and once they get it under control, I think they'll be fine. Moving forward, at least they don't fucking tape the ropes pink. So, like the purple they did for 205. I'm curious to see because I think tonight was the first round of the Mae Young Classic, and there's definitely some girls there I want to check out. The roster is so fucking jam packed with fucking people at this point is that they definitely need a roster cut. I think we talked about this in our prior show. They need a roster cut. They need to kind of get it down to nitty gritty because when you have the Miz on the pre-show, that's fucking balls. That is fucking balls.
Poor Miz. At least he won.
Yeah. Overall, after, again, let's continue. And I want to explain people about SummerSlam in Brooklyn. A lot of people like, oh, the fans were disrespectful. They're doing the wave. They got beach balls. That's not a typical New York crowd. You got to understand, for SummerSlam, it's kind of like WrestleMania where you have a lot of people coming from a lot of different places. It's fucking New York City, for Christ's sakes. Yeah. So we have a lot of people that are international. We have a lot of people coming from anywhere in the tri-state. We have people coming from California. So I've been to SummerSlam, and that's exactly how it is. So don't blame the fans of New York because if you go to the Garden, it's fucking different. Trust me. Like if you go to the Garden for just a regular pay-per-view, the crowd's going to be fucking way different. But you have a lot of transplants that are maybe super fans or a lot more smart marks in the crowd because these guys are coming in paying big money from all over the country. So that's one of as in New York, that's not us, buddy. That's not us at all. So there you go. So again, they had Raw over at South of Barclays, and I guess the big thing coming out of that show was the promo. So they had John Cena, who came over from SmackDown. He's now on the Raw brand. He comes out and he was interrupted by Roman Reigns, and then he was interrupted by The Miz, and Samoa Joe came down, and they had the promo. So Matt, why don't you talk about this Miz promo and why was it so awesome?
I think it was awesome because it was a touch of the Miz that broke out a few months, I guess many months ago now. He lambasted Daniel Bryan because he walked that line of kayfabe and backstage fourth wall where he said shit that people were thinking. And it's legit. And he's saying, and he basically came out and said, why the hell do you guys get this push when these people can't figure out if they want to boo you or cheer you? And the audience booed them. And it basically laid out the fact that he's a bigger fan favorite than they are.
Yeah.
Even though he's the bad guy. It's one of those things that people, I don't think they appreciate The Miz for what he does because he's been kind of buried over the years and he's always been like kind of the go-to guy to carry anybody to put over somebody. And not that it's not good for him to do that, but at a certain point, I think he's actually in the right here, where it's like, why am I putting these guys over? Why am I not getting my moment, my push? And it's like Brock Lesnar wasn't the champion.
Yeah.
And I think well, he's the IC champion, and that's fine. Like, I have no problem with him pulling the Randy Savage, where he elevates the belt because he carries it so long and he makes a good job of it, and he puts it on the map. But eventually, you've got to decide if you're going to make him the go-to next-tier star, because Cena's on his way out. I mean, we all kind of see that.
I think that they're at the point where they're going to have to turn the Miz babyface, which is dangerous. But I think they're going to have to do it, and I think the only way you can do that appropriately is, say you put him in a fatal four-way for the IC belt, and you have Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman and Samoa Joe, and they're fighting at it, right? And you got to have Miz eat all their finishers and kick out of everything. You have to have the Miz getting put through tables, getting blasted by these guys, right? But then he comes up from underneath as the underdog. And I see a moment in my head where Joe and Roman Reigns are out on the floor, and it's him and Braun. And Braun's pounding on him. And then the Miz just gets this internal strength, and he starts fucking fighting back. And it's punch, punch. And he's wailing on Braun. And then Braun does the Yoko kind of like, oh, is he going to go down? And then fucking the Miz picks him up and just gives him a body slam. And I swear to God, the fucking place would fucking explode. Like fucking Hogan slamming Andre. And then you can do a deal where Roman Reigns comes in, super punches fucking the Miz. Actually, Joe comes in, wipes out the Miz. He gets fucking speared by Roman Reigns, and then the Miz comes out of nowhere to hit the fucking Skull Crusher finale. 1, 2, 3. The Miz wins, and then he has his match with Brock Lesnar. And that could be interesting. You put him as a underdog kind of rocky guy, a guy who's been there forever, who paid his dues, who came up the hard way, wasn't given anything. Was probably getting less than most, and everyone thought he was going to fail. He's going to wash out. He's a reality TV star. No one gives a shit about him. You tell that story, and you position him as the underdog. That's the way to turn him. I think people will be throwing babies in the air, and they're going to love that because he can hold it, because he can verbalize his passion.
I agree that he can do that. I do think if you want to have him turn face, I always like the idea, like the Elias Hari idea, where because he's so about records and establishing things that he's won, having him, and I don't know how many days it'd be away now, probably another year, but having him about to break the record for all-time reign as IC champion, right, and he's got the match won, and something happens during the match where Maurice gets hurt by the other guy, or like somebody takes her out by accident,
and he has to make a choice.
And he's got to make a choice between. And it's one of those matches where he loses by count out, he loses the title, and he's got to choose between her and the title, and he chooses her.
All right.
And the fans would get behind him. They'd be like, this dude's got to, because I think if she can somehow become part of it, I think you could see him too. Let him use his humor, because they were awesome making fun of Cena on the way into WrestleMania when they were doing those bits about Cena and Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
That was gold. That was like right there. That's the stuff people will like. If he was making fun of heels like that all the time, people would be behind him and jump on that wagon. I've always liked the idea if he started some kind of, he's at the Miz Taraj now, I guess.
Yeah.
But if he brought somebody, like he brought Dolph Ziggler on, and Dolph Ziggler ends up taking over and betrays him and takes the Miz Taraj, and he injures, he's the one that injures Maurice, Because that you got to have some kind of really diabolical evil he's trying to turn good on, just having him turn good is not going to really cut it.
No, it's not going to work. Honky Tonk Man is at 454 days. The Miz current title reign is at 83 days. So he's a ways to go.
Yeah. Well, the all-time, what's his all-time numbers?
The combined days. His combined days for his 7 IC title runs, he's at 435 days. The longest is 619 by Pedro Morales. Okay,
so he's closing. He's got base. So you could have that happen. I remember Santino Marella.
Yeah.
He had a gimmick where he was the IC champion of the honky meter.
Yeah.
And that was funny. And I always thought if they wanted to make him a legit guy, and they never did, of course. They made him a comedy act. But have him start off as a joke, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna. And then as he got closer and closer, his character could change, become more serious. And gain an edge or whatever. I just feel like they don't do enough character changing. Like, you
character
see
development, because John Cena's been the same character for fucking 10 years.
Except now he doesn't give a shit anymore, so you can just see it in his face.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things about, and again, Miz called him on it. He's like, you come out here, people come out and give these great promos, and you smirk. And he was smirking at the time. He's like, that's the face. People don't take you seriously because you make that face because you're trying to undercut their routine or their character.
You think they're turning him heel? You think they're turning him heel?
Cena?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because look at his attitude. You know what I mean? That's something different. He's never been like that before.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility there. I mean, subliminally, very slowly, that he could just be an asshole, and you can tell, like, because that look, that face he makes, like, pisses people off. Like, that's all he has to do is make that fucking face, that fucking cocky little fucking smirk. And at the end of the day, like, I'm going to win anyway. So
my biggest problem with Cena over the years is that his promos too often cut down his opponent, so it made it like, I don't want to watch. I don't fucking care. Watch this guy fight or not. Like, just because he would cut up the other person, like everyone who's fighting Dolph Ziggler, and he's like making fun of him being like, whatever.
His biggest issue is that he's a hard time making people legitimate threats.
Right.
That's like even Hogan. When Hogan fought Bundy, he was like, I don't know, brother. He broke my ribs. He beat the shit out of me. I'm gonna give it my best. I'm gonna beat him, but it's gonna be tough. He put over his opponents.
I really think that. I think for Cena, where he like kind of finally lost me was the whole Nexus thing.
Yeah, that was fucking. You know how long ago that was?
And that was part A, and part B was after he took that hammering from Lesnar and came back.
Yeah.
It was like he should have had this whole journey of like, I got to redeem myself. I got to train harder than ever.
Nope, get back to basics.
Came back, same exact guy, no change.
And he's not even there. So he'll do another 12-week run, and then he's gone again. And It's like they have to move on from him at this point. Like they have no choice. Like you have Lesnar who's going to be in and out. You already have that. You have Jericho who's in and out. You can have Cena in and out too. But it's like, okay, we have to elevate some of these guys, and with the 50-50 booking that they're doing now, they're not elevating anyone.
No.
The last 6 months, everyone's in the same exact spot where they were. For the exception of Joe, who's elevated to the main event, but he's not going to have a title run anyway, I don't think.
Yeah, and same with, what's his name, Jinder Mahal.
Yeah.
At least he came out and he got a title run, and that's great and all. And it was funny because I remember watching it, and I was flipping back and forth between Game of Thrones and SummerSlam. And I kept timing it just right. And it's like I saw the finish of each match practically. But like Jinder beating Nakamura made sense to me. And I just, it's too early. Like you can't jump the belt. Like I think you're better off letting the heat build on him. So whoever beats him, it's a huge deal.
But he's being a decent feud too, because he had no character development prior to winning the belt. He was a jobber who came out of nowhere to win the belt. There's no development there. So he needs development now.
I do think I can tell you who the next guy to beat, who's going to beat Brock is going to be, though.
If you say Heath Slater, I'm going to punch you right in the face.
That's who it is. 3-man band, baby. They're all promoted, all elevated. Here's a question for you, though. If you're WWE, on a lark, would you put together a quick, one-night-only Southpaw Regional Wrestling pay-per-view?
I think based on their views online, I don't see why not. They can put together a legitimate, obviously pre-tape's not going to be live, but you can fill in a small studio, get 100 extras, dress them all in 80s clothes, and do an hour and a half of a Memphis style show.
Yep.
On that, you know what I mean? That can be done, and I think it can be done pretty much on the cheap. You don't have to, you can dust off some of that old equipment that you have in the warehouse, because I know you guys still have it. The old microphones or the old fucking cameras. You guys probably still own that stuff. They're probably sitting somewhere in storage. And, you guys can shoot it, and you guys can have matches, and I think that could be fun. That could be fun. The problem becomes, like, their stars become more over than their own stars on Raw.
Well, I will say,
because their merchandising sales are through the roof right now for Southpaw Regional Wrestling. I'm gonna get me another shirt.
I have one already myself, and people will stop in the street one day and like, "Hey, man!" I'm like, "Yeah." That was enough for me.
Yeah, there it is.
But yeah, I mean, I have a few wrestling shirts, but they're all either like Nintendo NES wrestling. I have the Southpaw, and then I have Damn.
I have a few. I don't like wrestling shirts with pictures of wrestlers on them because it makes me feel funny. But like, I have a Bullet Club shirt. I have an NWO shirt, like those type of shirts. I have a Bruiser Brody shirt, which is awesome. Because Brody is the man. Is it worth our time to talk about what happened on SmackDown?
Well, we didn't talk about what happened to Big Cass.
Oh yes,
he apparently tore his knee up pretty severely, taking a bump, and it was one of those bumps. I watched him take it, and I'm like, what is he doing? And I'm like, I almost thought to myself like, that's how you hurt yourself. Then he grabbed his leg. And I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
And it made me think either he's really selling well, but when he said fuck on the air live, I'm like, he's not faking.
Yeah.
Because like he would not have said fuck and risk in a gimmick and risk the heat because it was totally loud and you could hear them afterwards like it was a pause and then there's a silent pause like the guy hitting the button hit it too late. Yeah.
I mean, on SmackDown, I feel bad for Big Cass. There goes his push. Yet again, it proves Enzo Amore is bad luck.
Yeah.
But he did cut a hell of a promo on him, so there you go. Yeah, the Singh brothers taking on Nakamura in the handicap match with Nakamura won. Mahal attacked Nakamura afterwards, but Nakamura came back and hit the Kinshasa, so I guess they're continuing that. We'll see if we get them another pay-per-view main event. We had a United States Championship Open Challenge, which Kevin Owens came out. They had a match where Baron Corbin was the referee, but Corbin was doing so shitty that Shane took over the match and Styles retained. And then we had the Usos defeat the Hype Brothers and essentially a squash.
When's that going to change?
The Hype Brothers? I thought they were going to turn on each other at some point.
It totally makes sense.
Like, I want Ryder as a heel almost immediately at this point.
You know, here's the thing, too. They don't do enough of this. They think that we won't care because he's just Zack Ryder. We'll buy into a fun storyline.
Yeah.
Like, they totally screwed the pooch when they could have had Zack turn on Cena, even though Cena was playing the heel when he seduced his girlfriend.
Yeah.
But, come on, man.
Even when Ryder won the IC belt and had it for a day.
Yep.
Yeah, they really kind of just took the air out of that fucking shit. And I was like...
Yeah, totally.
Like, fuck those guys. So that's SummerSlam in a nutshell. Again, wasn't going to deep dive into it because there are 100 shows on the internet that's going to deep dive into it. But what I can say is the show was average to pretty good. Again, our complaints are just nitpicky shit. But I think overall the show was fun. There's no issues with the show. There's no universe breaking type shit there. Solid performances from everyone involved, for the exception of Baron Corbin, who sucks. I just think he's... Can he be Sid? I want him to be Sid, and he's not Sid or Kevin Nash. Can he be one of those two guys?
Baron Corbin, I think
he's super athletic too. He's like super fucking athletic, like Big Boss Man style. But
I'll tell you, the fix for him is to be someone's hitman.
Yeah.
Because right now he's just kind of doing his own thing.
Like Mr. Hughes.
If let's see, he's SmackDown, right? So I'm thinking who's around there. Yeah, if he was somebody's like Jinder Mahal, like all right, his guys aren't getting it done. That he brings, he's like, I brought on someone. I can pay for anyone. I pay for the toughest man in here, and he brings out Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
And there you go. There's Baron Corbin.
Fuck that guy. He needs to go back to NXT or wherever they found him. He needs help. He needs work. They brought him up too quick, like Apollo Crews. They brought him up too fucking quick. And I was like, pfft.
Well, Apollo Crews is one of those guys who was like, really? Apollo Crews? Like, the push they gave him?
Yeah, right off the bat. Like, he's super athletic. He looks great, but he never developed the character in NXT, so why would you think he'd be developing a character on the main roster?
Right, and speaking of jumping from NXT, Bobby Roode showed up.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what they're going to do with him.
I don't know what they're going to do with him because obviously he's not going to be in the main event with Jinder Mahal. He might be feuding with AJ Styles after the Kevin Owens thing, but what's he doing right this second? Right. Probably the best place for him would probably be a feud with Randy Orton and have Bobby Roode kind of beat the piss out of him. That's probably the best place for him at this point.
Ugh, Randy Orton.
I know, he's fucking staler than fucking 3-year-old crackers.
Ugh.
With no salt. You ever eat crackers with no fucking salt? Like, I'm talking about saltines, right? White fucking crackers, right? with no fucking salt. It's fucking gross. Fuck that shit. It's just nasty. You know, when I was a kid, I once ate an entire fucking box of fucking saltines and I put butter on them, and then I threw up. And then now I can never eat saltines ever again.
Oh, no.
Right? Like, it's like, oh, you want saltines with your soup? I'm like, fuck you. All right? They taste like fucking ass, and they fucking make me want to puke.
Saltines, that's to eat when you don't want to puke.
Well, I also did that with cheese. I once ate 100 individually wrapped pieces of cheese, and I couldn't shit for 3 weeks. I was a weird fucking kid. I don't know what to tell you.
Do you hate goldfish?
No, I like the pretzel ones, though. You ever had the pretzel goldfish?
I'm a fan of the plain ones, saltine ones.
I'm a Cheez-It man, personally.
I've got Cheez-Its. I'm a Cheez-It guy. I like the burned ones. Those are good.
Yeah. I can eat a whole box of fucking Cheez-Its and not give a shit.
Goddamn Cheez-Its.
This episode of the NWA 1983 project brought to you by Cheez-Its.
That's right. Make that deal happen, man.
No one ever talks to me. All right, so guys, we're going to talk about the Detroit territory, big time wrestling out of Detroit, the Sheik's territory. I specifically watched about 20 hours of Sheik's TV over the last 2 weeks or so because they're available on YouTube, which is funny because I think a lot of this footage is like kind of the oldest recording footage of some of these guys that's available. Like we see like an in prime Mark Lewin, who's amazing, and he's a super good looking guy. Like it's funny to see some of these guys not how we remember them. Sure. So Mark Lewin, for example, I remember him as the fucking Purple Haze. Like he fucking crazy. He fucking got the fucking third eye and shit, and he's doing all kinds of goofy shit. And seeing him as like a young white meat babyface, you know, jacked to the gills, is really different. It's really interesting to see. Now, in terms of Detroit, and we'll go over with stats and statistics in a minute, but just looking at their television show, I mean, it's not any different than any other television show, any other wrestling television show at the time. I mean, it's studio based. It's your standard studio wrestling, like a Georgia Championship Wrestling, like a Memphis. So in terms of the overall presentation, it's the same. It's not any different. And from the way people talk now, maybe just the 20 hours of footage that I watch, it wasn't overtly violent like I've been told it has been. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of blood, but not a whole lot of blood. It's not riotous. It's not, you know, people getting fucking penciled in the fucking arm and shit. It's basically just basic wrestling. It looks very much like a 70s WWF show because of the people they had on it. The people that I observed and watching were a super young J.J. Dillon, Chief J. Strongbow, Arnold Scotland, Pampero Firpo, Mark Lewin, Thunderbolt Patterson, Bobo Brazil, The Sheik, Stan Stasiak, Dominic DiNucci, Bulldog Don Kent. You know, and that's basically your roster for this time period. And a couple other guys coming in and out, but a lot of those guys made their name are mostly associated with the WWF.
Yeah.
On occasion, you'd see the Funks, and like the Funks would come up, and it's like, holy shit, the fucking Funks! It's the fucking greatest thing ever. See Dory Terry come up there, and they're doing their shtick, their shenanigans, and you know those really added a lot of energy to the show. But the shows were kind of low energy, especially when you compare it to something like Memphis or Georgia Championship Wrestling, where there's like just shit happening all the fucking time. But it's just, you know, it's typical wrestling. Again, they're promoting the Cobo Hall. You know, they're making sure that, you know. It's weird because every couple, you know, probably every half hour they keep on promoting, hey kids out there, if you have a club or a group and you want to put on a fundraiser, make sure you call the Detroit office because, you know, we can make that happen for you. So imagine the Sheik coming to your local high school gym for a fundraiser.
That'd be
on matches. It's probably nuts to think about it. And it's probably the earliest, well, at least what have I've seen, them actually trying to get people into wrestling. Like, they're not necessarily promoting a wrestling school, but they're like, oh, if you want to become a wrestler, you know, write to this address. We're looking for men over 200 pounds. We're looking for women that are over 100 pounds. And we're looking for midgets because, you know, the kids are back in school. And I'm like, what the fuck? So that's the first time, like, you've never seen in Georgia people trying to get people to become wrestlers.
Right.
But in Detroit, they fucking tried to, I guess they didn't have enough stars or or they're trying to find the next. Because what that roster didn't have was young guys. They just didn't have any young guys on that roster. You know, they had JJ for a little bit, but he wasn't necessarily young at the time. Everyone had to be in their probably mid 40s, maybe early 50s in some cases. Their roster is just full of veterans, not guys who are out of their prime necessarily. They look good. They had great matches, so they're in their prime, but not necessarily guys who are up and comers anyway. And there were no good looking baby faces. I'll tell you that. You had Mark Lewin, and that was fucking it. But from what I saw was that Detroit is booked differently than all the other promotions. So if you look at some of the other promotions, they would bring in, you'd have your top babyface, and they would basically bring in a heel, to fight the babyface. That's what New York did, and that's what some of the other territories, Florida did with Dusty. You bring in guys for them to fight. This was backwards, so they would have to bring in, because the Sheik was staying. It's his territory. He's a heel, the top heel. Right. So they would constantly bring guys in to fight the Sheik. And that's interesting to me, because basically what would happen was, the way they booked it, the guy would come in, beat the Sheik, he would win the fucking United States Championship, they would feud for a while, and then when the guy got ready to leave, the Sheik would beat him by throwing fire in their fucking face or some shit, and he would win the belt back, and then that basically just kept on going. You see a lot of that with Bobo Brazil, because the Bobo Brazil versus the Sheik is their main feud, you know what I mean? Like, that's their top program, that's main event in the Cobalt, that's what they're doing. And, basically nothing else matters on the card. Interesting note, I saw a young Ox Baker on the show. Like, before he looked all fucking crazy, like he looked fucking normal. That was weird to see, yeah. So I definitely recommend, people to, check out Detroit Wrestling. It's all on YouTube. That's where I watched it. You can probably find about 15 videos. They're around an hour and a half each. If you have the time, definitely, check it out. But in terms of the territory itself, I think we forget sometimes when it comes to like old school WWF guys like Killer Kowalski or AJ Strongbow or Dominic DeNucci, like how over these guys were. Like how Bruno was on top, but these guys that were underneath Bruno were fucking super over too. So you had like your Pedros, Dominic DeNucci's, Kowalski for the heels. These guys were super over, because you can see it in Detroit, because the reaction that Dominic DeNucci gets in Detroit is amazing. He thinks he's in the Rock and Roll Express or something. It was that insane. I'm like, holy shit, Dominic DeNucci. And it's funny about DeNucci, because DeNucci was big in Japan too, because he's on one of the early Tiger Mask episodes as like a main guy.
Really?
Yeah. So... So Big Time Wrestling basically started in 1945. It was promoted by Harry Light from 1945 to 1959. After that, the Sheik at Farhat took over in 1964, and they ran that shit till 1980. People say that the Sheik's territory went down in 74, like their big business was behind them, but they lasted another 6 years. From looking at their TV, you couldn't tell that they were on their ass or they weren't making any money, because it looked like everyone else's TV. And then when they cut to the arena to show matches from the arenas, crowd was... the audience is blacked out, so they don't have the house lights like a WWF show has the fucking lights on. In these arenas, the lights are off in the crowd, so I can't see if the arena is half full or not, because you can't really tell. But from the looks of it and from the crowd reaction, it still seemed to be pretty strong, and they seem to have people there. So I'm not sure if it was 1974, because I just don't see the evidence on television. Doesn't mean that it's not the case. It's probably most likely the case, and these guys are right. Yeah. But from the look on their TV, no, it seemed okay, and it wasn't overtly violent. Now, again, it may be just the episodes that I watched that were overly violent, thrown off of TV. Because eventually they did, and they lost TV, and that was the end of it in 1980. And then Detroit was down until 1987, until New York revived it, and WWF revived it, and then obviously you did the Silverdome show. So there you go. Right. So Matt, what are your thoughts on Big Time Wrestling out of Detroit?
Well, anytime you get to watch a Sheik is enjoyable, but I would say that it's one of those events that you have to remember that we often associate, like you were saying, like the pencils and fireballs. That wasn't an everyday occurrence, and nor should it be. But it's often the same, like with ECW. Think of ECW, every single day didn't have somebody getting crucified on the cross. Things stand out as memories. Like, oh, all the chairs getting thrown in the ring. That didn't happen every time, but it happened once and it stood out. And I think Detroit, for what it was, made a lot of good memories that way.
Yeah.
But I would be willing to guess that what made it fall apart was probably inept decisions.
Well, yeah, because you have the Sheik, who's the number one star, and he's the booker. and the owner, and then in the 70s he's already 50.
Right.
And it goes back to any other promotions. Like, when you don't make new stars, you're gonna fall by the wayside. And he didn't have anyone to replace himself with, because at a certain point, after 25 years of the Sheik and Bobo on top, I mean, how far are you gonna take that? It's like, what are you gonna do? And literally no one stayed in Detroit very long. Everyone would leave after a couple of weeks. You know, he was extremely wealthy, but at that point, I'm assuming, you know, his engagements, you know, he's still a wanted commodity around the world anyway. So obviously he would have to leave his own promotion for a while to go, would be wrestling in Japan or having matches with Bruno in the Garden or what have you, because they bring him for a couple of weeks, and that was that. And I guess people would say that Abdullah was his protege, but Abdullah didn't stay long in Detroit either.
Yeah.
He spent a lot of time in Japan. But it was funny that when Andre had his first world tour, his first North American tour, so Andre, you know, they discover Andre the Giant. Supposedly Vince Sr., but even that's up for debate. Vince Sr. discovers Andre, and he's like, all right, he's going to go to all the territories, and he's going to win, and we're going to get him over because he's 7 foot fucking fool. So Andre comes in and beats everybody, right? For the exception of the Sheik. The Sheik gets the win over Andre. He throws fire in his face. Andre rolls out, and Andre gets counted out. So you can tell that, like, okay, the Sheik is going to protect himself and his character and fuck everyone else. You know, it's like, ooh, what do you do at that point if he's not going to, you know, he's not going to take the loss as a heel? The promotion is destined to not do well. I mean, they had stars come in. They had the Sheik versus Dusty, and they had the Funks come in and that kind of stuff. But I don't think it was destined to be. No, it wasn't long for this world, and that's big time wrestling. I mean, there was wrestling in Detroit prior to big time wrestling. You had Nick Lundis, who ran it in the 20s and the 30s, and then Johnny Doyle and Jim Barnett ran it in the 50s. But it's the Sheik that's mostly associated with Detroit wrestling. You know, the Sheik himself is an interesting character. I mean, obviously he's the uncle of Sabu. We all know that. If you don't know that, you probably shouldn't be listening to this show. But also, some people don't know that he also trained Rob Van Dam. Man, he trained Scott Steiner.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But, you know, the Sheik is a memorable character. Again, between the pencils in the arms and the bloody matches he had with Freddie Blassie and the stuff that he did over in Japan. And I think his last match was in the 90s because he didn't give a shit. So I definitely dig the Sheik in his territory. And I highly recommend watching the TV show. Again, like I said, it's available on YouTube. So definitely check that out. Even if you check it out for a couple episodes, then you'll realize real quick that it's not any different than any other studio wrestling show that was going on at the time. The thing that's cool about it is that it's probably some of the earliest recorded footage that you can see with some of these guys that you don't often get to see, like a Mark Lewin or Pamper or Furpo, the Kangaroos. You know, you get to see these guys like, oh, and their video quality is pretty good because it looks like a lot of these tapes were either taking off the Masters or the first generation videotape. So
yeah,
you know, overall the tape's pretty good. I'd like to see Tom Ernesto. He makes an appearance as an announcer, kind of an authority figure. He looks like a pimp, and everyone in the 70s apparently dressed like a pimp. That's pretty much how it worked. But nice to see Tom Ernesto, a member of the original Assassins, on there. He's someone that's kind of a name that gets lost through the ether throughout time. So, you know, we try to keep these guys' names alive, and, you know, definitely, you know, take a couple minutes, look up a Wikipedia article, go on Kayfabe Memories, and check some of these dudes out. Especially Mark Lewin, who's like, I'm surprised was an NWA champion because he was awesome. He might be my new favorite wrestler at this point. So. But yeah, some of these guys, like, we talk about today, right? We talk about, like, oh, this guy should be champ. This guy should be champ. You go back through the 80s. Oh, God, Ted DiBiase should have had a title run, and Mr. Perfect. You go back to the 70s, and there's a bunch of fucking guys who didn't get fucking a run that probably deserved one, like Thunderbolt Patterson and Mark Lewin and so on and so forth that didn't get shots at it. It's like, oh, these guys are fucking really fucking good. Piper, you know, to be NWA champion. You know what I saw? Speaking of Piper, I just recently saw a match where Harley Race beat Piper clean. I was like, holy shit. Look at that. Roddy Piper did a job. Those are so fucking rare. Like, 9 times out of 10 they're a double count out or whatever, but like, yeah, fucking I don't think, you know, as tough as Roddy was, I don't think he's fucking around with Harley Race. Because I know we talk about the greatest world champions of all time. We talk about it on this show. And people go to Flair, historically is number one. Hard to argue that. Some people will go to, like, a George Hankersmith, but they're just fucking trolling idiots. We'll talk about that in a minute. Some people go to Thez, but can you make that comparison without seeing him live? Because there's not a whole lot of him on videotape as a champion.
Yeah.
Some people go Dory Funk, but again, is there enough on tape of him as the champion? We see him after, but as the champion to make that, make a comparison, I don't know if there's enough. But for me, it's definitely Harley Race. Like, Harley Race is the fucking man. He is the greatest wrestler on God's green earth to this day. Like, he's just so awesome. I prefer him with the brown afro versus the blonde afro. I like the big brown afro with the big fucking mutton chop fucking beard and shit. Like, that's my Harley Race, wearing a fucking plaid suit, not giving a shit, with fucking big gold rings on his hand. That's the Harley Race that I know well, goddamn it.
The pimp.
It's awesome. So I did want to take a couple minutes out here. There seems to be a movement on Twitter and on social media. Fans are arguing with other fans because so-called fans are not real fans. I don't know what defines a real wrestling fan, or what defines what they call a fair weather wrestling fan or a casual fan, but there are people arguing up to the point where it's like, oh, you're a girl and you can't be a wrestling fan, or you're a girl and your opinion is not valid on professional wrestling. And that's literally the stupidest shit I ever heard in my entire fucking life. Jesus fucking Christ. What is wrong with you people? Y'all people need to shut the fuck up. Need to look in the mirror and get your priorities straight. It's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Because to me, it's a fucking goddamn joke. Like, how are you going to compare your fandom with another person's fandom? That makes no fucking sense. I don't care. If you're a wrestling fan, you're a friend of mine. I don't care if you only watch fucking WWE, you only watch Raw. Or if you started watching wrestling because you watched Total Divas and now you're into wrestling. To me, that's fucking awesome. That's great. I know people who started watching wrestling because they saw Sting on Family Feud. Does that make them a less fan than you? Don't be a fucking idiot. Don't be stupid. Is there different tiers of fandom? Like, do you get points for watching Raw every week? Do you get like 2 extra points because you watch New Japan? Do you get 3 points for watching Global Force? Do you get 5 points for watching Lucha Underground? Is there points associated? If you go to a Raw Live, do you get 10 points? Because I'll tell you this. Any of these dumb motherfuckers on Twitter, there's always going to be a fan that's better than you. That's the way it's going to be. There's going to be fans who are more knowledgeable than you. There's going to be fans who go to more events than you. Right? That's the reality of the situation. So don't be a dickhead. You're not as smart as you think you are. First and foremost. If you're making these comments, then you obviously don't know what you're fucking talking about. Do your research. Do your homework. Watch more wrestling. Analyze. See what the old-timers are saying. See what the people today are saying. Put that all in a fucking bucket and learn from it. Never stop learning. That's what I do. I'm like, shit, I don't know about Mexican wrestling in the 40s. I'm going to go fucking check that out because I think it's awesome. Right. Does that make me a better fan than you? No. Probably makes me a more knowledgeable fan than you. But you can be as knowledgeable as me if you go fucking look. The internet's a wonderful place when you're not reading comment sections. And you can find anything you want to know. So there's no reason not to educate yourself. Don't be stupid.
Well, it goes to anything, sports, really. If someone's going to have an opinion different than yours. Oh, what do you know? You only watch it for a time. You don't know what you're talking about. Great. That's a good answer.
That's what happens when you have a shitty argument.
Right.
There could be a person that just watched yesterday, and they may have a better understanding than you, or may have a different point of view. Like my wife, who does not like wrestling. She does not watch wrestling. But we'll glance at it every once in a while because guess what? It's on in my house all the fucking time. So she has no choice. And she asked one simple question that fucking blew my mind. They're wrestlers. Why do they need a reason to wrestle? It seems weird. Like, that's what wrestlers do. They don't need to be in an argument to wrestle somebody. They be wrestling anybody because they're wrestlers. Right. I'm like, look at that fucking shit. I'm like, huh? You're fucking right. You're fucking goddamn right. Yeah, that's a hell of a point. So, amount of time doesn't matter. What they think they know doesn't matter. As long as you're a wrestling fan, just treat other people with respect. Don't be a fucking moron. Don't be an idiot. Because there'll be someone out there who's going to school the shit out of you. Trust me. They exist. Fucking A. Fuck those guys. Those guys fucking pissed me off. I was like, who the fuck do you think you are? I follow lots of wrestling fans on Twitter just to get, a feel for what they're saying and stuff like that. And it's like,
yeah.
And if it happens to be a 20-year-old girl that loves Roman Reigns or loves Dean Ambrose or loves Seth Rollins, well, guess what, guys? 5 years ago, you loved Roman Reigns, you love Seth Rollins, and you know what I mean? It's like, it's like, are you mad that your favorite indie band is now mainstream? They're pop stars now, and you're mad because they're not yours anymore? Fuck off. You're stupid. No, they're fucking stupid. Fuck them. It's like the people who bitch at Meltzer because Meltzer will give his opinion on a match and give a star rating, right? And they're like, how come that wasn't 5 stars? How come it was 3 stars? How come it was this? I was like, you're asking him to justify his opinion? Why? It's his opinion. Why do you care? They're like, oh, they only give 5 stars because it's in Japan. That's Dave's taste. He likes those matches.
Right.
There's no he's not even claiming objectivity here. You know what I mean? That's his opinion. Like, if you want to start rating matches and then put a match list online with stars on it, go ahead and do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead. But he doesn't justify anything to you. The man's been watching wrestling for fucking 40 fucking goddamn years. Jesus fucking Christ. He has his own opinion.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense. It's like, why do you even care about this fucking star rating thing? It's fucking annoying as fuck. Like, Dave might say, like, oh, it's 5 stars. I think it's 4 3/4 stars. How about that? Fuck off. Uncle Dave's a good dude, and I wouldn't fucking call him out on the internet. It's fucking stupid.
Uncle Dave.
He's my uncle. He's Uncle Dave. Plus, he could probably rip your fucking head off, too. You see how ripped he is now?
Oh, yeah. He's
oh, fucking dude.
Little jacked.
He should be working somewhere. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he used to work for WWE in the 80s. Yeah. For a short time.
What was he doing?
Meltzer stuff.
Meltzer stuff.
He was on the payroll. I don't think he's been necessarily forthcoming with what exactly he did, but I know he left because...
what's he covering up?
He was going to report on the steroids in wrestling.
Oh.
And Vince was like, no, you can't do that. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing it. So he did it. Banned from shows. He can't go. I think he can go now. But, people go back and read his newsletters from 20 years ago and then ask him questions about it. Like, he remembers. Hey, you remember in the March 19th issue of The Observer from 1989, you said this. He's like, the fuck? But I give Dave credit, man. He fucking responds to, like, every single one of those, too. I'm like, dude, why do you even fucking talk to these people? It's like, why do you even give it credence? I would just fucking ignore him. That's what I would do. I would just fucking ignore him. Like, you're stupid. I like his t-shirt. Because the way wrestling, quote-unquote, journalism works is basically everyone reads The Observer, and they take clips of it and then puts it on their websites. That's how a lot of it works. There's some good internet sites out there. But most of them was like, Dave Meltzer's reporting, but they take pieces of it, and then people read a headline that Dave Meltzer reported this without reading it, and then he gets mad. He's like, did you fucking read it? That's why Dave Meltzer has a shit that says, Dave Meltzer, reading is your friend. I don't think I've ever read an issue of The Observer, but I respect the man. Fucking Christ.
Well, you know what's really funny? Back when I was first getting into wrestling, I was reading Pro Wrestling Torch, The Observer, and one called Controlled Mayhem out of Tennessee, which was all about the Continental.
Nice. And
I couldn't afford to get all 3, so I decided to drop Observer because it was too bland. Like, no, it was just like, it was very, just a matter of fact. But Torch had a little more style to it, and then I submitted some articles to the Torch that was kind of cool, and the Controlled Mayhem just fell off the map.
Yeah.
But anyone ever knows what happened to Brett Bond was the guy that wrote it. And it was called Controlled Mayhem, and I had like every issue for the longest time. Then I had a flood, and I lost a lot of it.
Oh, that sucks.
But yeah, lost my torches for like 5 years with the torches.
Fuck it. Yeah, I was educated by the PWI, so there you go.
Oh, yep. Stu Stacks, man. Stu Stacks.
Fucking PWI was my fucking education. The fucking almanac. That's how I learned shit. And I realized later that all of it was kayfabe. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how the base of my wrestling knowledge is PWI. That's the base of it. Eventually, like, I got fucking tapes and shit. I'm surprised I wasn't fucking molested as a child. You remember the back of the wrestling magazine that you had pen pals and shit, right?
Oh, do I?
And it was like, I get a letter back, oh, you should come over to my house and watch wrestling tapes. Like, how old are you? 55. Mom was like, nope.
I will save this for next time. I'll tell you the story of the pen pal I had from New York who claimed he was a wrestler. I think he was a gay club performer.
You sure it wasn't Mel Phillips?
It wasn't Mel Phillips.
You sure?
Yeah. But I will share that next
Terry
time.
Garvin.
How's that for a lead-in? I'll share it next time.
So, guys, we are officially out of time, so keep on a lookout. We're going to have, next week will be the premiere of our new show. It'll be Retro Wrestling Rewind, featuring Michael Swanson. We'll take a look at a particular era, and we deep dive into it. Like, he's doing research for it, which I hope is pretty much complete at this point because we're gonna record that show tomorrow. But he's gonna take a really insightful, in-depth look. He's doing a bunch of research. I'm gonna be talking out of my ass. So it should be a good mix there. Our first episode will be our first couple episodes will be focusing on the New Generation era. But I felt it was necessary to do a prologue of late '91, early '92 stuff to kind of set up for the New Generation, and we're gonna talk about all that shenanigans. We're going to talk about the Lex Express. We're going to talk about Bret Hart's title run. We're going to talk about Hogan doing Hogan shit. Yoko. The rise of Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels' ascension to the top, the debut of Razor Ramon, the rise of occupational gimmicks. So you'll see that soon. And, we're going to record a new episode of Retro Wrestling Presents, and that episode will be Fire Pro Wrestling, Six-Man Scramble, and then we're going to talk about the New Japan invasion of the United States on the episode as well. So be on the lookout for those. Those are coming up soon. Again, scheduling is tough, especially when we're working with different kinds of people, and people do have real jobs.
Right.
We do when we can. That's why I don't have a weekly schedule, because that'd be stupid for what we're doing. So be on the lookout for that. And all right, so for Matt Riley, I'm Juan Cena. Have a good night.